starring Miss Darlene, written, produced, and directed by Amy Schwartz. Darlene wanted to be a star, so she signed up for theater class. The first morning, the director held auditions. Darlene played Little Red Riding Hood. After lunch, the director spoke to the class. "We'll be performing Noah's Ark. Jonathan, you're Noah," he said, "and Mary Ann, you're Noah's wife. William and Bethany are the elephants, Mortimer and Sarah the giraffes, and Luke and Penelope the snakes. Darlene, you're the flood." All afternoon, the actors practiced their parts. Darlene waited. She didn't know what the flood should do. In the evening, she tried to act stormy in front of her mirror. The next day, the director pulled Darlene aside. "You'll be offstage holding a pan of water," he said. "When it's time for the flood, you dash on stage and throw the water on the ground. It's simple, yet vital. You don't need to rehearse. What could go wrong?" All week, the actors rehearsed. Darlene crocheted an afghan. On Friday, Darlene got dressed in a long blue gown that was her costume. She took her place backstage next to her pan of water. "Look," the director said, "the theater critic from the Daily Weekly is in the front row." The play started. Noah heard about the flood. He built his ark. He gathered the animals. He said, "It looks like rain." Darlene dashed on stage. Her feet got tangled in her gown. She spun around. She threw the water. Unfortunately, she threw it into the front row. On Sunday, Darlene opened the newspaper. "Audience participation," the headline read, "in extreme sport." For this reviewer, the article continued, Friday's show was a drenching yet refreshing experience. Miss Darlene's performance was especially exciting. Darlene read on under her afghan, where it was nice and dry. On Monday, the director said, "This week we will perform a science fiction play." Darlene was very interested. She loved space. "Jonathan," the director said, "will play Commander Whittaker. Mary Ann will play Ensign Forrest. William and Bethany, Mortimer and Sarah, and Luke and Penelope, the space aliens. And Darlene will be Professor Looney." The director handed out the scripts. Darlene had 13 lines. She started rehearsing right away with the space aliens. Darlene rehearsed on her way home, at dinner, and in front of the TV. "The aliens have landed," she said. "The world has ended." The next day, the director said to Darlene, "Do you think you'll have a problem with remembering your lines?" "Oh no, not at all," she replied. She rehearsed while she brushed her teeth and while she got dressed. "We will rebuild our cities." Darlene threw out her arms. "Our rivers will flow again." She rehearsed through her lunches, in the bathtub, and when she walked the dog. "We have to begin again," she said. "We mustn't give up hope." On Friday, Darlene kept rehearsing as she climbed into her costume and put on her makeup. The play began. The aliens landed. The world ended. Commander Whittaker, Ensign Forrest, and Professor Looney entered. "Professor Looney, what's happened?" Commander Whittaker said. Professor Looney looked out into the audience. She saw the theater critic. Professor Looney froze. "Professor Looney, what's happened?" Commander Whittaker said again. Professor Looney said. "Professor Looney, what's happened to the human race?" Commander Whittaker repeated. "The world has landed," Professor Looney said. "The aliens are ended. We have to give up hope. We mustn't begin again." Professor Looney crossed the stage. She threw out her arms. "We will rebuild our rivers. Our cities will flow again." On Sunday, Darlene opened the newspaper. "Profound Professor Looney," the headline read. deepens play's mystery. In her role as Professor Looney, the article continued, Miss Darlene used words in a way this reviewer has never even dreamed of. A triumph. A mysterious smile crossed Darlene's face. This week, the director said, I will let one of you take over my job. Jonathan and Mary Ann sat forward. Darlene, you're in charge, the director said. Darlene couldn't believe her good fortune. We will perform Sleeping Beauty, she said. I will be Sleeping Beauty. Mary Ann, Penelope, and Bethany are the fairy godmothers. Darlene batted her eyelashes at Jonathan. And Jonathan is the prince. Darlene had never enjoyed rehearsals this much. Every day she pretended to be a sleeping princess. Every day Jonathan woke her up with a kiss. The night before the performance, Darlene couldn't sleep. Did the fairy godmothers know their lines? Would her costume fit? What would the theater critic think? At midnight, she made herself a mug of warm milk. She watched some TV. She did a crossword puzzle. Darlene played with her dog. She read a book. She stared into space. At last, she fell asleep. Darlene ran to theater class in the morning. She had overslept. She hurried into her costume, trying not to yawn. Darlene parted the curtains. The theater critic was in his usual spot. The play began. Sleeping Beauty was born. The fairy godmothers made their predictions. Sleeping Beauty grew up. Darlene lay down on Sleeping Beauty's bed. It was very comfortable. Sleeping Beauty fell asleep. The prince rode in. I will now wake Sleeping Beauty, he said. He kissed Sleeping Beauty. Sleeping Beauty turned over. I will now wake Sleeping Beauty, the prince said. He kissed Sleeping Beauty again. Sleeping Beauty snored. The prince gave Sleeping Beauty a kick. Sleeping Beauty snorted and woke up. What the? Said Sleeping Beauty. The end, said the prince. On Sunday, Darlene opened the newspaper. Slumbering Princess, the headline read, enlivens classic play. What could have been a tired production, the review continued, instead had a whole new twist. Sleeping Beauty actually slept. Darlene sat up on the sofa. With Miss Darlene, she read out loud, a star is born.